The world's not getting any safer, but yet we're also exploring new frontiers. So if Lisa could come up and moderate it feels like a fireside chat with Keith, but Gator's couldn't make it in from, he and I live 10 miles away from each other in New Jersey, but he's on Zoom. Yeah. Gator, can you hear us? Can you say hi? Microphone near him. Hold on.
Is he connected?
Okay.
Is he over there? We can't see him, so we're going to have to.
We can't see him. Is he connected?
Can we hear him?
It's a one-time chance. Gator, say hi.
Yep. Hi, Keith. Hi, Lisa. Can you hear me?
Oh, he's faint, but he's kind of there. We're going to have to have him louder.
Do it again.
Do it again.
It might not work, Gator.
Okay, let me try to speak up here. How about now?
Not gonna work.
Unplugged.
It's okay.
Hey, try one more time.
This is on. So,
Over to you, Lisa.
hi everyone. So great to be here, and I want to just say hello, and I'm so pleased to be here with Keith Rosema, and I want him to share a little bit about his space history with you, and just give you a brief history of mine as an investor and founder of a space company here in Seattle called Explore. I'm an investor in over 300 companies personally as an angel, and then I built Hemisphere Ventures, and now I focus on Explore only, so I'm not investing currently, but I have a lot of thoughts about it, and Keith certainly does as well. So I'm going to hand it to Keith to say just a little bit about his background so you get your bearings on the amazing rocket scientists we literally have in our midst.
Hey, thanks. It's great to be here. Such an amazing, you guys hear me, right? Amazing group of people here in the room today. As Lisa says, I've been in space for a long time. I started my career actually at JPL working on interplanetary spacecraft and remote sensing, so I actually did the spacecraft thing for a while. Went away, formed some startups that were successful, and exited those, became a member of the founding team of Blue Origin, so both space and startups at the same time. That was pretty exciting. And I think back to what that was like 25 years ago and how much the space industry has changed since then. We'll be talking about that, I think, but it's just been an amazing, amazing journey. After Blue Origin, I was at Intellectual Ventures, building technology startups, including new space spinouts like Chimeta, which is a electronically steerable antenna company for space. And then headed up technology innovation for Paul Allen, and those projects included Stratolaunch, another really interesting dual-use technology I think we can get into. I spent the last 6 years at Madrona. I noticed Madrona is still on my name on the panel. I should be clear, I left Madrona just recently, and I'm operating as a free agent today, so things I say are not Madrona, they're me. So that's the intro, I think.
That's right. That's great. And I do want to just get a bearings on how many in the audience are space investors currently. Well, we have some Explore investors. Hi, Mark. And okay. And so when we talk about space investing, we're just wondering who's familiar with companies like Rocket Lab, Relativity Space, Black Sky, Planet. Okay, so not a lot of sense of space. But I'll tell you, I went to my dentist the other day, and she said, "What about that Katy Perry?" So this is where I had to say to myself, and I told Keith, like, wow, there's so much we have to do to educate the public about the space industry.
Yeah, I think it's actually great that actually comes up. Until like not too long ago, it was Space Shuttle and NASA or nobody, right? Even 25 years ago when Blue Origin and SpaceX came up, those were the first commercial companies to do space launch. The first times it didn't take a whole nation to put something in outer space, right? And now we have companies that are regularly part of the news cycle. What's changed, of course, in the last 25 years is there's now a whole additional layer of many, many more companies that are making up a whole space ecosystem that go beyond the headlines that we don't know about. I mean, Explorer is one of those, but there's also, Planet Labs is one of those, and then a whole slew of other ones that are now just starting to become part of the awareness. We've now seen companies go all the way from eager early startup company, the three guys in a garage trying to build a rocket problem, all the way through IPO, and that's a huge new thing.
Right. Well, we did call this session dual use, and the first thing I heard was, what's dual use? So I think we want to explain, as the new startups that have come up in the last few years are finding commercial uses for space. And, I mean, we've heard about Starlink, and we know that that's commercial, internet that you can get from the satellites. But what are the other ways we can think about it?
Yeah, I mean, dual use technically doesn't just mean space. Space is sort of a special case of dual use. Dual use is anything that could be both civilian and military application. The very first startup I founded was an encryption technology startup back when encryption was a controlled weapon by the United States. And we were also dual use, so it goes way back. But obviously, any of the surveillance technologies could be dual use depending on how they collect data and how they manage it going forward. A really interesting company that was just in the news yesterday, Mach Technologies, or Mach Industries, I think, just raised $100 million from Coastal Ventures. They're only 2 years old, and they're doing what I would actually say leads into space weapons. So they're actually launching weaponry from orbital kinds of technology. So absolutely dual use, maybe more one side of dual than the other, but it spans the range. So communications, data management, and anything defense related would be included in dual use.
Yeah, and now you're already going almost
Am I
into the
too fast?
golden. No, you're almost going into the. Has anyone heard of Golden Dome? We all heard about Golden Dome. Maybe we could talk about that for a minute of why that's a positive for the space industry. We think.
I think it's a risk. You Mark, asked a question like what scares people and what excites people. I think this space could be a little scary and a little both. Golden Dome, this isn't the first time we've heard it. Many people here probably remember Brilliant Pebbles, Star Wars, right? The idea is if you're in space, you can look down and stop missiles and things from other places. Those of us who are in the space industry know that's a much harder proposition to actually execute than it is to imagine. But it does mean that there's a huge boost of interest in space. I think that's good. You'll get a lot of people excited and a lot of new ideas. I think the risk is polarization, regulation, a whole bunch of things that can actually really slow progress down. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I don't know why, but I think about. I know you all just came from San Francisco, and in San Francisco, I used to talk about Mubadala was like on everybody's lips in San Francisco, magic Mubadala money, because SoftBank was making all these investments in startups. And I feel like Golden Dome is like that other, like all the advisors at our company are like, Golden Dome, you have to be focused on Golden Dome. But it's just this big amount of money, and the question is, who gets it? When can they get it? Will they get it? The promise of it, of protecting our nation with instant ability to react to missiles, counteract missile launches, this type of thing. We're talking about like an infinitesimally small amount of time that would be required to actually protect the nation for missile launches and things like that. So it's not just about that, though. It's like a larger infrastructure. So many companies can be a part of that larger infrastructure of a layer of architecture. So maybe we'll pick up some pieces along the way. But
Yeah. I mean, I think from an investor standpoint,
yeah.
like people get excited about government policy changes, but until it's actually been around for a long time as an investor, you want a path that doesn't depend on policy banking your company.
Right.
So, but you might discover lots of new things. So, you know, a good example of that kind of technology actually is Stratolaunch. That was it's the largest airplane ever built. For those of you who haven't seen it, the wingspan is so broad on this plane that the Wright brothers' entire first flight could take place from one side of the plane to the other. It's that big, and it was meant to launch rockets into space. Oh man, I don't even remember the number. It's huge. It's actually two 747s side by side welded together, basically. Not exactly, because we built that out of carbon fiber, but imagine two
He did that.
747s. So big, meant to carry a rocket up and launch it from outer space. And we could talk, actually, there's a whole bunch of sort of very flexible space launch companies coming up that are really cool. But it turns out the place that's really useful is that the US is trying to figure out how to build hypersonic weapons. So airplane level missile-like things that fly at hypersonic speeds, and you have to launch those at atmosphere. So we actually ended up building it originally to do commercial space launch and discovered that it was better to do a military application for that kind of a launch. And that's kind of like, oh, how do you go from 1 million feet? We want to envision this kind of a thing to 100,000 feet. We're actually going to try to do it.
Right.
It develops those kind of technologies. So
Where are we relative to Russia and China on hypersonics?
it's changing fast. The U.S. does have some very good hypersonic technology now, and it's been actively working on that for a couple of years. I don't know if anybody here is involved with aerospace and avionics, but that has come up to speed. I think China's doing a very good job right now.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. I don't have a lot of secret information, but
Yeah, we do have some startups in hypersonic propulsion. Venus Aerospace is one of them that's been well funded. Yeah. But I think if we go back to the startup environment, what would you say for investors? Ben, I don't know where you are. I came in and he said today, I'd invest in space elevators and asteroid mining. Well, and I just...
I can tell you about both.
And we could tell you about both because I've lost all my money on that stuff. But to frame it for what's real for space investing, like categories. You're mentioning hypersonics. We're on the edge of the data story. What other categories would you say are of interest?
Yeah, I think a hard thing for investors in the space sector is just knowing what the market looks like. If you're an investor, you can gamble. Some people do. But most people like to know about the businesses that they're getting into. They like to know the arc of those businesses. They like to know how the market behaves. You can't make a bet on a company here or there unless you kind of know what they're going to get into. You might even know more about what they're getting into than the founders do. Sometimes that's good or bad, I don't know. But in the space sector, that's really hard because it's a new space. It's highly technical, so you actually probably need a lot of technical understanding to get into it. And it's a developing market, like it's developing so fast right now. So I think data on observation is a great example. It sounds great. I'm going to put up a satellite and take images. But then you're like, well, what kind of images? What resolution? How fast do they need to come? Multispectral? Gee, that'd be kind of nice, right? What does the data need to look like for the consumers? All that stuff. You actually need a little bit of a feel for it, or need to be conversant in that as an investor as well as a founder in order to do that. So data space, there's the launch space. We've seen a lot of launch companies lately. But now we're seeing infrastructure. We're seeing satellite buses come up, right? We'll make you a satellite for real.
Yeah, kind of interesting. Apex, that was well funded, was doing satellite buses, and that's basically the satellite that contains a payload, and a payload meaning like an instrument. So the payload is cargo. So they were doing that, but then we heard about another one recently that said, well, we're going to go a step further and we're just going to build the whole constellation for you. Because like my company, we expect to have 17 satellites in space. That's a whole constellation. We put up the first one and it's flying, it's doing a great job. But now we have to get it perfected before we can rinse and repeat, which takes a while. But once you get that perfected, you're good. So this company says, well, we're just going to do the whole constellation for you. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, so there's like vertical roll up. There's also, we're seeing more of the picks and shovels stuff. Like I've seen companies offering mission operations for your company. So we'll do satellite mission ops for you. Lots of software like compute in the sky kinds of things. Aethros, I think, just got funding a couple weeks ago for AI on your satellite. That's actually what excites me about this space is that we've gone from, we have 2 companies that want to launch stuff to a whole ecosystem of companies that will basically do all the things you need. It's just slightly smaller than the whole ecosystem of everything.
And as you're talking about the deeper layers of knowledge, it really does require some depth of information. So a company like Loft Orbital, some of you might have heard of, they're taking other people's payloads to space. And you have to ask the question, it's on a platform that's shared. And so, for example, our company has our own satellite. We operate it ourselves. We have full access 24/7 to using a hyperspectral imager to take imagery of the Earth. On a shared platform, it's like a timeshare. When do you get your time to take an image, and how does that affect productivity? A lot of questions, but I keep meeting more founders. I was just at the EO Summit in New York last week, and these founders said, oh no, we're not actually operating our satellite. I thought, okay. And then their imagery was lesser quality, and I thought, well, I don't wonder why, I don't think.
Yeah, I know, and I think this gets to the other end of things. Like maybe you need to know something as an investor, but you also might need to know something as a user and consumer. I think I was talking to Carl, I don't know where he went, earlier at lunch today. He's like, what, I could actually put up a CubeSat? I'm like, yeah, you could actually go do that. But like that information isn't out there for people either. It's amazing.
Yeah, Mark, you mentioned a satellite lady, somebody named Satellite Lady, and she basically put somebody's art on a satellite. So you can do that. This is the world we're living in today, which is kind of cool. I mean, just fun fact, my husband has his face and bio etched in nickel on the moon right now. Because he didn't plan this.
Great place to get a job.
Great place, yeah. But yeah, his bio is there. Because the Space IL lander crashed on the moon, and we did not know that this philanthropic group we were working with had etched his bio, put it in the nickel, had it on the lander, and the lander crashed on the moon. So he's on the moon.
There you go.
Yeah. Of
How
all
convenient.
things. I know. We got to get you on the moon now. So,
We have a question back there.
yeah.
I'm just wondering, what's the future of establishing colonies on the moon, on Mars, having people go and live there, or is that going to be a robotic?
The question is, what's the future of putting people on the moon?
Yeah. Well, Blue Origin's mission, speaking for Blue, you should go
No,
ahead. go
they'd
with
love
that.
to do. I think there's a lot of desire to do that. It's still a really hard problem. It's not a friendly environment for people. You can live there without much, you can go visit and walk around for sure. You don't want to spend time there. It would be very bad for your health. So we do have things we have to do, but I wouldn't be surprised to see robotic operations on the moon pretty soon. We're seeing private companies send moon landers. Obviously, still a hard problem. People will work that out. And I do believe this is a case where the robots will pave the way for humans eventually, for sure. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to talk about some investment strategies we've seen with the companies that have made it to go public. So recently, Voyager had an IPO. What are your thoughts on how they approach that as terms of it's a roll-up, but how they got there? Because funding is traditionally hard in this industry.
Yeah, I think, I still feel like, I shouldn't say this, I still think if you're betting on a space company to go IPO now, that's a hard row. But it can be done. I think that's the exciting thing about Voyager. You can actually get there now. And that we're actually seeing companies, as I think I mentioned this at the beginning, at all stages of investment. So it used to be that, generally speaking, you either needed a really great individual backer to put your space company together.
VC.
Or you were kind of this small company fighting your way through the world of venture to get there. And it was really, really hard because there's no precedent, right? Most VCs are like, well, where's the precedent for me knowing that I can make this investment? There isn't one. You're starting from scratch, right? But that's changing.
It is slightly. I mean, the VCs have kind of walked away from space because they've been burned time and again, and so they might say they're investing, but they're really not investing because the model doesn't. The risk factor is high typically.
Yeah. So they won't tell you they've walked away. There's a joke in VC, many of you probably know, right?
They won't admit it.
You never get a no, just an absence of yes. And space investing is really hard because often it's a lot of technical risk up front and it's a lot of upfront capital before you get anywhere, and that's just not a great recipe. But we're seeing people get through it. We're seeing, because there's a broader ecosystem, people finding contracts earlier, people getting business earlier, people mailing partnerships earlier, and that's actually making people believe more in it. So you are seeing some investors do it, like here in Seattle. Fuse just put up a fund that'll do $1 million, an early investment in space technologies if you want. So I think that's great. Let's say Mandala Space in LA is continuing to invest as far as I know. Okay. And then later on, like Khosla, I said, was a partner in the Mach Industries investment. So they're there, but it's a hard fight. If you're a space entrepreneur, you really need to have a plan.
Yeah. So, on that note, like the types of where's the best place to get funding then for an early stage venture?
Yeah, you need to know your VC. Probably everybody here knows that. We have things we invest in and things we aren't comfortable in investing in. And so if you're an entrepreneur and you want to do space, you need a pretty good list of the people who are willing to invest in hardware, people willing to invest in space, people willing to invest in communications. I think the strategics are an interesting place to look as well.
Yeah, they're slow.
They're slow.
Yeah, but a lot of ways people vet companies in the space industry used to be to look at traction. It would be, did you get government contracts? Are you getting any level of revenue? What kind of traction points are you looking for now in companies that you're vetting?
I mean, those are some. It's just hard. I think, more now, again, because we have this more richer ecosystem, there are more players to do business with. And so what we're seeing as successful is someone who comes and, a little bit like Explorer, has a dozen people on their list of contacts that are in some funnel stage of income development. It's not, hey, geez, you have 10 customers or you have $1 million in contracts, but you have an active funnel of things coming along. That's what I definitely look for. It speaks not just to the revenue potential of the company, but also the potential of the founders to engage in business activities, which is really important. So.
Yeah, great. Yeah, we can ask some questions.
You wanna ask
Take
questions?
some questions.
Yeah.
Blue?
You come up. I'd love to hear about the Musk-Trump implications.
It's been a
You
roller
were not.
coaster.
Well, ask it your way. Come. I mean, one thing that we did know is that the cost of launching, just the way it's come down, has been a factor.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask your thoughts about the current administration, and they seem to have an inclination to support funding for space. So what's your thought about that, and where do you think that's going?
Well, the challenge is they're saying that they want to support new programs. As an example, my company is waiting on a program that's supposed to be even bigger and even better and even more money than the last one. And the website's been down for a month and a half. So that's crazy. We have other opportunities where we know that we can walk into some of the proof points that we have with our satellite allow us to get new contracts based on what it can do. So we're looking to get those examples out there, and we're told that at like the Space Domain Awareness TAP Lab, for example, we can go in there, show them examples of our ability to look at other satellites, and they probably can write a contract on the premises, like, yes, we want this. So we haven't seen that happen yet, but once we get the proof and we can walk in the door and say this is what we can do, we're told they will be responsive.
I just back that up very briefly. I think there's a lot of excitement and willing to approve, and whatever the next steps are pretty unclear. So it's a risk. Nelson has a question.
Yeah, thanks. And this is more of a forward-looking question. As the costs to launch decreases and the amount of countries that want some kind of satellite increases, at what point do you think it'll actually become dangerous to have pieces of equipment either orbiting in space or actually just to have the launches and not get hit by things?
Launch is
something in
probably
5
not
years?
so much, but space debris is actually a serious problem. I think it's probably another big regulatory risk, because right now we're kind of playing the big sky game, right? Nothing's really hit anything yet. But we could easily have a catastrophic cascade. And as soon as somebody important gets damaged, you're going to see a host of regulations, a clamp down. And it might not be needed, but it'd be really bad for the entrepreneurial industry, because right now it's pretty Wild West. So I think it's a risk. I think you're right in being concerned about that.
Is this the time for waste management?
If we could figure out how to do it, it's
Well,
not a problem.
Sounds like an opportunity.
There are companies dedicated to tackling the problem that have gotten pretty big. One is called Astroscale and is funded by Japan.
One of the questions one of the things you brought up a little bit ago was multispectral and hyperspectral imagery. What is the time frame, do you think, for that technology to be able to be rolled out worldwide, globally, in a low Earth orbit type constellation?
That's a Lisa question.
That's a Lisa question.
Yeah,
and
thank you for the question. Because we are working on a 17 satellite constellation by 2028. That's my company. There are other companies working on constellations. I don't know that they're going to get there, to be honest, because of the examples of what we've seen them do. Operating an instrument like that's technically a camera, you cannot do this type of work if you don't have the right people that are experts in it. You can't just be an engineer and say, I'm going to put this instrument on a camera and get a great quality outcome. There's so much involved in it. As you would know from your company, looking at the Earth at a closer level with drones, you've got to have calibration.
Quick follow on. How do you process all that information that's coming in from all of these satellites? Isn't that a big, huge problem for you
Right.
to try and address?
Right, thank you. And we do hope that Starship really gets up and gets going, because the sooner we have or did I say Starship? Starlink, what am I saying? Gets going to the point where they can commercialize, although we were told SpaceX probably won't do that. It'll be AWS or Kuiper. But the sooner we have better connectivity to get more data to the ground, the better. Because right now it's like dial-up modem, and it's really hard to get large size files down from space, but we're plugging our way through it. Yes. Hi, Walter.
Hey, Lisa, how are you?
Great.
Good. Lisa, we've got a lot of visitors in the room, and I was hoping maybe you have been so fundamental in the development of the space industry in the region. Could you just touch on what's going on in the Redmond Space District and all these other little areas? I mean, we've got a lot going on over here.
Thank you. Yeah, so when I created the Redmond Space District with the mayor, Redmond, and then moved my company to Bellevue, people weren't happy about that. But what was interesting is the Redmond Space District was really focusing on companies like Kymeta, that's in Redmond. We have L3 Harris, SpaceX is there. So if you're not familiar with the Redmond Space District, more satellites than anywhere in the world are produced in Redmond. Fun fact. And that's why we said we should acknowledge this, and we should have this as a zone that could be getting some government funding or tax benefits or that type of thing. And now we're trying to also use it to educate the public. Every time I go to DC, I'm talking to congressmen about the district, but also it's focused on manufacturing. And while Explorer does have a 200-kilogram satellite that we're manufacturing ourselves for the future 2028 launch or what have you, we want the public to know more about the data story. And so the plan with now the Bellevue mayor is to create the 405 Space Data Corridor, because all these companies with data centers are going to be ingesting space data and utilizing it for leveraging their businesses. Maybe you can speak a little bit about that, because it's really an interesting.
We are, unfortunately.
Oh, darn.
But there's like 125, 150 companies in that corridor now or something like that.
150 companies, yeah. So every company can start ingesting this data that has intelligence that can increase competitiveness, lower costs, save money, et cetera, for companies that start to learn how to use it. It's that powerful.
So this is where now we have an AI summit, now we need a space summit. And I know that if it's in person, Esther will keynote.
In New York.
Yes.
We got to go to New York.
Yes. So, well, you have to come to New York then.
You got it.
Maybe DC, New York. But thank you, everyone. What a great...
Come join our 361 firm community of investors and thought leaders. We have a lot of events created by the community as we collaborate on investments and philanthropic interests. Join us.